What's up, everybody? It's DisBearity here, and today we're going to be reading this interesting article on Rock Paper Shotgun about Paradox Interactive. So Paradox thinks that there's no point in competing with XCOM after their Lamplighters League flop. It's winner that takes all in the tactical gaming space. So could they be wrong in this? Could they be right? I believe they could be definitely wrong, but let's go ahead and find out. So last October, Paradox Interactive announced that they and the development studio Harebrained Schemes were breaking up, following underwhelming sales of Harebrained's 1930 set XCOM-like the Lamplighters League. The publisher had already made layoffs Harebrained in the run-up to the release, implying that the pre-order numbers were low. Ultimately, Paradox wrote it off as a $22 million flop. At the time of the parting ways, Paradox Chief Operational Officer Charlotte washed her hands with XCOM likes entirely, commenting that the new project or sequel in the same genres was not in line with their portfolio plans. So in my opinion, with just this first paragraph here is like the first time when I heard what the Lamplighters League was actually whenever the YouTuber who I watched at the time, Christopher Odd, was showcasing this game. Now, if I remember back then, about a couple of months, let's say I think like 8-9 months ago, I actually tried to get early access to this game in order to showcase it on my channel. But I was denied because, I'm not a big YouTuber. So one thing, my whole point is that marketing is one of the main issues why this game did not sell well. If you don't market your product, people aren't going to know about it. And so a lot of people did not know about it. I didn't know about it until this game was close to release. And again, Christopher Odd showed me as an example. So on to the next paragraph. We ourselves were mixed on the Lamplighters League, a strong turn-based foundation and colorful setting held back by grind, blind chance, and a need for efficiency over tactical variety. But other outlets were more enthused, and the Steam review consensus remains positive. Even now that Paradox had yanked support, when I spoke to Chief Deputy Executive Officer Matthias at Paradox Media Day earlier this month, I had to ask about the game's fortunes and Paradox's decision to steer away from XCOM likes in the future. So, onto this quote here. He says here, I can start with how we see the reality of that game, or the reality of that genre. When we started the project, we read it as a fairly lively genre, where there were many games, tactical games, that could coexist, and that is true. There are plenty of these games that can definitely coexist. I can name a few if need be. We often think in terms of who's the number one in the genre, what does it mean to be number 2 or number 3, and if you're number 3, is it still a viable option in the long term? If it is, maybe you want to go there. If you're not going to be number 1, maybe number 3 or number 4 or number 5, whatever. See, and here's the problem is that you're trying to chase that number 1 thing instead of trying to just make a great product that people can enjoy. It doesn't matter if the game's in the number 1 spot. It doesn't matter if the game's number 10 or number 20. As long as it is enjoyable to the consumer that, consuming your game, it's great for everybody, And so, like, I can name a couple. You got games like Songs of Conquest, different types of tactics. You got BattleTech. You have, Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. You have Jagged Alliance 3. You have Lost Eidolons. Those are some games that take place in the tactics genre that can definitely be given chances. I mean, they're not number 10s or 15s, but they're there and they're enjoyable. So that's my point. So on to the next paragraph here. Let's see here. When we released the Lamplighters League, it quickly became very obvious to us that this was not the game that people wanted. We weren't going to be able to save it. He went on, it was reviewed okay. I liked it too, but it was not on any size that would mean this would be sustainable for a long term. Again, because Paradox did not market this game whatsoever. A lot of people found out about this game. They found out because at release, because it wasn't marketed in their face. Paradox can market their own games like Stellaris Europa and Crusader Kings, but they can't market other studios' games, which is quite interesting because, you know why? They can't nickel and dime everything. At least my opinion. Alright, so, in this paragraph here, Paradox, in the habit of publishing games you can play for a few years and decades with lashings of DLC and free updates. Yes, as I just stated. This business model, which predates Steam's early access format, has led to some consternation among players regarding how many resources the developers set aside for paid DLC versus the main game. So what they're basically saying is, if the main game wasn't half-baked like a lot of other Stellaris products was, or are, maybe the Lamplighters League could have been better. I think Paradox looked at this game differently, or they should have been looking at it differently, and not looking at it as another Stellaris or Europa game, where they can nickel and dime everything. They needed to put everything in this one package, go 120% on this one package, and then release it, and then see how things perform, and then you work on the DLC. But Paradox must have got things twisted because they forgot what game they were working on here. Now, this ain't no real-time strategy game that they can nickel and dime like they were doing, you know? So that's that. So it says, in this paragraph, we're starting to see that there might be maybe a second place, but there's no third. Here might not even be a second place in the tactical gaming space. So maybe there's only one game. There are certain genres that are like that. They have one game and everybody else is sort of catching up or finding a viable substance, or existence as the second choice in this genre. Again, why are y'all chasing these top 1, 2, 3? It's insane. Just make an enjoyable product and people will buy it and market it. Paradox had a strong suspicions that the Lamplighters League would flop. Based on pre-order numbers as such, the apparently mutual decision to split with Harebrained came out pretty quickly after release. So in this quote here, the game was basically commercially dead on arrival. And the studio, that is what they do. It is very specific what people are good at in game development. Certain talents you can move, but the core team of a game is really hard to pivot to something else. They're not going to be very good at, all right? And now it says, it's the same with the grand strategy people. They're probably going to be very good at other genres either. So it is quite specific, the understanding of these games. They're such complex products, you know them specifically, so we're in a position where we said we can't use the team effectively. They're like, we want to do what we're good at. So good, let's go our separate ways. And that's what they want to do. And that's perfectly fine. You know, that's cool. I just kind of wish that the Lamplighters League IP would have probably went through Harebrained, but you know, Paradox, it's such a flop that they weren't going to let that happen, you know. But I get it. They paid for it. It is what it is. So we quickly came to an agreement with the devs that we needed to set our separate ways. We're not going to invest more in this type of game, and they wanted to make more of these. So yes, Paradox, basically, if you read that sentence here, Paradox wasn't going to invest more into it, but Harebrained wanted to do more. So moving on to this mid-section here, one thing I did raise that the Lamplighters League is Paradox's first stab at publishing an XCOM-style tactics game with a particular combination of grid and turn-based combat. The company's past disalliances with the format include Empire of Sin from Romero Games, which released in 2020. Now, for what I remember for that game, by the way, I heard that game was just a buggy mess, and also they made some weird changes in it that made it just not really liked by the player base, but that's from what I hear. Our reviewer, Tom, called it a wonderfully ambitious mashup of systems wrapped around a levelly, extremely cliched caricature of the golden age of gangster fiction with some significant flaws born of said mashing up and far too many bugs. Paradox deemed themselves not satisfied with Empire Sin at launch, though the disappointment was masked by 2020 being the best year in Paradox history. So why did they keep trying with XCOM like in its wait? So let's go ahead and figure out why. They messed up the execution quite a lot. The Lamplighters League was a competently made game, decently reviewed, and it did work. The fact that Empire Sin didn't work was kind of obvious, unfortunately, and that was also on us. So it didn't say anything about the market. Really, it just said that if you don't make a good game, you're not going to fly in any genre. We might have read that wrong, but yeah, we didn't release a good game. That was always punished. Well, yes, because if like most games in the 2020s now are releasing buggy messes, especially if you are not known in the industry yet, you know, most games, especially AAA games, people are going to deal with it because those are named in the series. You know, like example, Halo, for example. Halo, even if it performs badly, people are still going to play Halo because it's Halo. You know, Silent Hill 2, which recently released, same thing. It's Silent Hill 2. People are still going to enjoy that. So you kind of get what I'm saying here. You know, so when it comes to Empire Sin, yes, people don't want to play broken games like that, you know? So it is what it is. So speaking as a fan of XCOMs, to say nothing Gears Tactics in Year Mutant Zero, I find the idea that there is precious little appetite for games comparable to XCOM distressing. Is this really more than a gut response from Paradox, or so? How do they explain the situation? Is the audience for such games too small, or are people overly welded to XCOM? That is basically a yes and a no thing. It's mostly because the strategy genre is still a pretty niche genre, and you have to create a game that's going to appeal to the mass people. Like most people, especially if you're trying to appeal to the Call of Duty 2K people or whatnot, they're not going to get out those games. So you can't really try to appeal to those people, basically, you know? And so that's how I see it. So execution is everything. That's the logic that I'm trying to refer to. So maybe there's XCOM and nothing else. Or somebody makes it a successful XCOM style game, and I look at like an idiot, but right now, that's our thinking. Yeah, that's that's a pretty dumb way to think about things. But yeah, Paradox Chief Executive Officer Heinrich offered a similar argument later that day when I asked for his thoughts on Lila's I don't know how to really consider an entire time. Assessment of the tactical game space. I don't have data on this, but there's my distinct feeling that for this target demographic, it's winner takes all, he said. We don't need to, but we should look at why it is, because it seems to me that the survival crafting genre, for example, is infinitely big, but turn-based tactical, it seems more of a number one or nothing. Then again, I like other turn-based tactical games like Phoenix Point, he stated, or added, but there seems to be something to that. It will be interesting to delve into that for what it is. I think Lamplighters League is a good game. That's all that needs to matter, you know? The problem, again, with the Lamplighters League is just that the game wasn't marketed enough to like people to like warrant, you know, to know about. Because, you know, there are plenty of tactics games in their genre. Again, you have 40K Rogue Trader Chaos Gate. You have Lost Islands. You have games such as Songs of Conquest. You have Phoenix Point. You know, you have just so many of these games in this genre. You have Jagged series, actually one of my favorites of last year, you know. So things are possible. It's just you got to be willing to give this game or the game that you're creating a chance and build up the hype for it. If you don't build up the hype for it, you know, no one's not going to get it. So let me know what y'all thoughts about this in the comment section below. Do y'all think that Paradoxes are wrong? Do y'all think that they're in the right? How skeptical do y'all feel? Let me know. If y'all enjoyed, remember to like, favorite, and subscribe. Thank y'all for watching. Peace out. What's up? And you guys have a good one.